What's up, everybody? It's Armin. We're going to be doing another 2.5 swap. I'm going to be doing a full disassembly and reassembly with cams and valve springs here on camera. So, picked this motor up from LKQ yesterday. It's kind of nasty on this side. We'll be able to clean that up. And I'm just going to do the whole strip down and reassembly on camera. I have my work table. I have my appropriate tools for doing the valve springs, for the crank holder, the timing tools, assembly grease, and then of course all the parts that you can buy in a kit on my website for doing your own 2.5 swap. We're also going to be doing Esslinger cams and Mazda speed valve springs along with this. These parts over here we won't be installing today as we don't have the car. We use the customer's valve cover for installing this. Obviously have to have the customer's car here to do the AC as well as to do the exhaust casket. All right, we're going to start here on the floor before I go ahead and put it on the engine hoist and then put it on the stand here. This is just to get a couple things out of the way that I have better access to just sitting here on the ground, mainly on the rear side. I'm going to pull the rear main seal. After that, I just kind of make my life a little easier by pulling things apart while it's sitting here. And then I'll just be gathering a bunch of those bolts here. Even if they're not of use for this project, we'll just keep them around to go into my collection of massive amounts of bolts. Okay, so the portion on the ground is done. I went ahead and moved to having it on the stand. I neglected to pull off a couple of pieces because those are going to have coolant in them and they're going to puke, so I want to make sure my drain pan's under here. For now, I have taken all the bolts off of the front cover. We'll disassemble the timing after I get these last couple of things off. I've left the thermostat, the side pipe, and the rear housing. And then we'll also do a little bit of cleanup on this to get that mess off of the side. As well as, let's go ahead and, I loosened this sensor, so let's go ahead and pull that guy off. Let's proceed. Okay, I've gotten everything apart that I need to. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a small break. I'm going to clean up this giant mess I've made, and then we'll reconvene doing the valve springs, as well as cleaning up all of these surfaces before reassembly. Taking care of cleaning the ground, taking care of spraying down the motor. I got most of that mud or whatever off of here, so this looks a lot nicer. And then move a couple of things around on the table. So we're going to go ahead and start removing all this RTV off of the front. I'm probably not going to take care of the bottom immediately, and then I'll do the valve springs next. Here's my battery died, so like I said, we're going to go ahead and start taking this thing, taking the RTV off of the front and such. Got the leak down tool, got this tool here. So this will cause the motor to spin over because currently we're at like 90B TDC. So when I energize this, it's going to cause the motor to drop down. You don't have to do this at full 120 shot pressure, but I'm not going to put a regulator on here. It's not like I'm about to bend a valve because no valves are open. So at this point I've completed the installation of all 16 valve springs. You notice that I did cylinders 1 and 4, and that's because both of those would be at BDC with the leak down tool in there, and then I did 3 and 2. So you may have also noticed that sometimes I smack some of them with a hammer, and it's either because I'm trying to get the valve to close 100%, because some of them, when you stick it in there, these motors have sat for a bit, so they may not 100% close. Give them a couple of taps from the hammer and it'll close up. Otherwise you have this thing just screaming the whole time that you have the leak down tool in there. Also, at some points, if the valve seats, the valve retainers wouldn't sit correctly, I put my finger over them, put the tool over it, and tap it, so that way they would be able to get into position. You don't always get them exactly into the exact position you want. Either way, all 16 of them are done. What we're going to do now is we're going to install these Esslinger cams. These come with, these are supposed to come with shims. There they are. There they are. Okay, so these are what you would call lash caps. We're going to install these lash caps. They are they're all the same. So we just install one on top of each of these. We're going to reinstall the buckets in the exact order they were removed. And what this will allow us to do is we'll take those buckets, put them into our calculator, put the cams on, measure our lash, and we'll know exactly which buckets we need. All right, so the camera died once again at an opportune time though, so I was just doing the valve lash measurement. So now we have the valve lash measurements. I'm going to go throw these into my calculator. These are our measurements. We have 10 nines, and then we have a 10, a bunch of nines, and a 12, and then we have a mixed bag all the way between 10 and 17. So we changed out a bunch of these buckets. Our objective here is to get all of these to be 8s and all of these to be 10s. So it's about closing time here, so I'm going to end the video for today. Tomorrow we'll come back with replacing all these buckets out. So I went and took care of my calculations last night. And I went through the bucket inventory and I grabbed the buckets off the shelf in order to replace the ones in order to make it to the specifications that were given by Esslinger. So our objective here is to have, Esslinger says 6 to 8 thou on intake and then 8 to 10 on the exhaust side, so as per normal, I always just go for 8s in the intakes and 10 on the exhaust side. It's pretty normal across the board for a lot of these cams. So with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and pull these buckets out, reorganize them, and install some of the buckets that I had to pick off a shelf. That's it. All right, so some of these measurements were really far away from spec, so it is very important to recheck. So even after putting all the buckets in that my calculator said should be exactly correct, we came up just a little bit off. So I try to be a stickler for my specifications here. So on the intake side, we had several of them come up as 9s, and 3 of them actually came up as 8s, which was the objective. So I've already changed out a couple of those with what I had here, and then a couple of these actually came out pretty far off on the exhaust side. But we were, again, really far off in the first place. Like, we were aiming for 10s, and one of them started as 17, another as 16. That's a pretty big jump, so we want to make sure we measure when we're moving that far. Whenever I'm on the 9s, 1,000th away, I'll go ahead and just move up to the next bucket size, and I know that will be appropriate because that's a very close movement. The next bucket size will be appropriate, and that's how a lot of these will work out. But now that we have these much closer, we shouldn't have a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the calculator again, and then we'll resume again. Okay, so I actually had to go through, I think, 4 or 5 iterations of changing buckets out because my measurements kept on moving around. Either way, all the measurements are where I want them to be. We have all 8s and we have all 10s. So I'm satisfied with that. We're going to move forward with timing the motor. I'm going to take a small break, move a bunch of stuff around, clean some of this stuff up, and then we'll resume. So I'd like to point out what I've just done is I took your standard tool that comes with the Velcro rear mains, and I broke off the back piece because it allows me physical space in order to get this on without dismounting it. So what I do is I just take it, and as you saw, I broke it off, but then I put it in and I make sure it is flush on this side. You make sure that the seal is not folded at any point. That way when I put it on there, this will pop right out. So. So being that it's lunchtime, I'm gonna go ahead and let this sit. We have the front cover bolted on, we have the oil pan bolted on. Just gonna let that stuff dry, and then after lunch, I'll take care of putting on the crank pulley and the water pump pulley. I guess that's kind of it. All right, I can't go to lunch just yet, so I'm gonna take care of cleaning off these intake ports, making sure that the top surface is clean, installing the spark plugs, and then we're gonna worry about getting that crank pulley, as well as I do need to extract this bolt. All right, we got those couple of things cleaned up and assembled. Oh, this motor, surprisingly, I've never seen this. This motor came with one of the insulators for the starter, so I went and just put that on there. So we're gonna clean off the face of this. This is an OEM. It says LF94. As you can see, it is not a non-OEM. Okay. So as far as this is concerned, we we do need to put on our washer. Our washer here. I'm gonna grab a Q-tip because I like to clean off the nose of this before I install it. Okay, so that means the nose of the crank gear is now clean. I'm going to take this crank washer, let me not drop it. I'm going to slip that on there. Because this is the nose that goes onto here. I'm going to take a little bit of this oil out of here, put it around the outside, just like you oil your seals. It's hard to oil this seal, so I'm just going to steal some of this oil. Lubricate that seal. So now we put the crank pulley on. We'll stick our big ass bolts in there. Next part is crucial. We'll leave that guy nice and loose. Take our little M6x1, line up the 2 bolt holes here, stick that in there. Alright, I went and found my my handy dandy snap-on torque wrench. We're going to set this guy to the 74. And we're going to counter this. It is extremely important that you counter correctly, because if that M6 down there breaks, then it was your fault. Because you're supposed to counter this. So I'm going to hold this here. Okay, there's our 76. 74. I'm not going to split hairs on that one. Looks like I put it to 76.6. That yours?
Yeah, it's mine.
I got a bigger one than that.
Dude, whoa.
We're going to take our crank gear and we're going to mark it right down there. We're going to take our crank pulley and mark it right here. There we go. I'm going to go get my other tools.
John.
Alright, so tried something different this time. I tried using the gigantic 3/4 breaker bar, and I'm still slightly too weak in order to do this by myself, so grabbed an employee and easy peasy. Now this is a good point if you want to check your timing job, rotate it back over and try to insert all the timing tools. In some cases, or in many cases, you'll have really tight positioning to get that the cam holder in the back. So a little bit of wiggling on the cam might get it in there, and that's fine, that's pretty normal. But you want to make sure that the crank lines up with the bolt hole, as well as with you want to hear it clunk up against the stopper over here. That's pretty much it though. We're done until the customer comes with their car. Thanks for watching.